Kimberly here, and I've got yet again another dual experience for you that will charm the pants off of you. It is so stinking cute. So Everdell Duo can be played competitively, but also, and this is kind of the kicker, cooperatively, and both versions are so satisfying. Absolutely satisfying. And the cooperative version also offers a campaign play that gives players different goals to go for and includes this adorable little booklet that will walk you through how well you do overall, and of course all of your wins and losses and overall scores. It's wonderful. But what I'm going to do is start off first with showing you the competitive play that just lays out what's going on in the game, because this is so fun. I have to say that really since Far Shore, the Everdell series and the releases have just been getting better and better and better. And while I wait for Everdell Silverfrost at the end of this year, I'm going to be playing Everdell Duo. You better believe it. So here's what makes it so fun and so just you want to come back into the world, you want to keep playing it, you want to play a game almost right after you finish your first game. So in this, players are going to be playing either the tortoise or the hare, and each player has their own card that tells them exactly what to do and gives you that reminder of the anytime you can discard 2 cards for any one of these basic resources. You've got berries and stones, resin and twigs. And then there are these little doors in here. These are occupied tokens, and this is going to allow players to chain locations with your critters or your little animals, which I think you probably have seen in previous Everdell games. These are going to be the coins. Coins are also worth victory points. Much like you'll see on the cards out here, they have a victory point in the corner that looks just like this coin right here. Players are going to essentially play through 4 seasons of rounds, so 4 rounds in the game, and you have these little figures that you can place out into locations that have a little paw symbol. It's going to give you things. You've got the river, and in the river there are a ton of these locations that you are going to randomly turn over that give you a special place that has a combination or a unique action that you don't necessarily see anywhere else. So there's a bunch of these guys, and then I just randomly put out the 2 stones, and then another one that lets you do the play action, but you get to play a card for 2 resources less of your choice, which is that little symbol right there. So that's going to be the river. You've got the farm, and the farm is going to give you some basic resources. Up here you've got some events, and at the beginning of the game, players are going to shuffle through. They're going to essentially randomize all of the A's by turning it over and then picking one. And this is part of setup, and what I've done is just I've left all of these out because I want to show you what part, the reason why you want to play the game so much. Like, look at this. There are 6 of these A opportunities, and these are going to be similar, but they're not the same goals. So every time you play, you're probably going to have different A tiles and B and C and D and E and different combinations of. And once you select one of each of these, you add in the fair token, you shuffle them up and then place them out randomly in these locations, because when you go to those locations, you're going to receive some kind of benefit or resource that is randomly placed or partnered with one of those event tiles. So those are going to be the places you go to events. You might also have one of these red cards. These have a little pawpaw on it. So if you have this in your player area, or your opponents, you can go to that space. Now, if it's your opponent, you do have to essentially pay them, but you get to take up that space, and that space is probably really good. You see the cards out here. This is going to be the open display of cards that are available to players, and whenever you do an action, you're going to be moving these sun and moon markers down the trail, and when both of the markers are down there at the end of the trail, nobody can take any more turns. And that's going to end the round. Now, whenever you take a sun action, you are simply going to be moving the sun marker That's when you place out one of your figures. In this case, this is the hares card. So when you place a hare on any one of those action symbols, the pawpaws I just mentioned, you move the sun. If you play a card either from your hand or from the open display where there is an adjacent sun or moon token, you move the moon token. And if you ever draw cards either from the top of the deck or from the meadow, that's the meadow symbol, which is out here, you're going to move either the sun or the moon. So you have a little bit of choice here. And let me go back and tell you, let's say the markers are here and you want to play a card from the meadow. You can play one of these 4 cards because there's always at an intersection where the moon or the sun token is. These you're not allowed to play and these you're not allowed to play because there's no adjacent corner of a sun or a moon. So that makes it a little bit more efficient when you play from the meadow as opposed to playing from your hand because you had to gain the card to your hand as part of some other kind of action. This is so cool. Essentially, the winter token, or the tile out here, has already been done because you do these at the start of the round. So that's why my hare has 3 cards. Players start with 2. The hare gained a card and then is going to go first, so it gets first opportunity. But then the tortoise got 2 cards, drew 1, and then drew 1 from the meadow. So they're looking at their cards out here and trying to figure out what they want to do. The cards with the breakdown, pretty straightforward. They tell you what this costs. This is a pretty expensive card. It tells you what kind of card it is, either a structure or a critter. This is where you're going to see the little critter symbol, is you're going to see the little mousy face. So that's a critter and that's a house. And for example, this is a purple card, or it's that kind of windmill. This one's the courthouse and it's got a little scroll and that's blue. And this is going to cost some berries. This is going to cost the 3 other resources. And then courthouses do a when, it tells you what to do. It says place 3 coins here, when doing this, do that. So it's kind of got this trigger action. Purples are going to be victory points at the end of the game. The brown rucksack, which here says the postal pigeon, is going to tell you to do something right now. So that is an immediate action when you play it down. You are going to do that. It says draw 2 cards. You may play one of those for 2 fewer resources and then discard the other one. Yes, please. That is amazing. Oh, here's a green card. These are really important. These are the production cards in the game. And in this case, you will immediately gain what it says at the bottom, and you're going to trigger it at the start of the 2nd round, and you're going to trigger it at the start of the 4th round. So productions are going to run when you play them once, and then they get to run again and again if you get them out really early. So production cards are kind of dynamite. And then the other one that I mentioned is the pause. It's going to be an action space to go to. So those are the 5 different symbols that you're going to see. And when players can achieve the events because they have those types of cards in their player area, they can take their figure and put it up in that space to claim the amount of victory points up here. I have 1 production, 1 rucksack, 1 animal paw, 1 construction or government building, and then 1 purple card. I've got those. I can come up and claim this. And the only other card that is not claimable during the game, it's at the end of the game, is if you have more cards in your player space, which is your city, and your hand. If you have more cards than your opponent, you're going to have the longest journey and you're going to get those bonus 5 points. So these are going to be out there and players are going to see them and know what they're going for. And if they can simply accomplish that in their player area, their city, they can say, I've got more critters and resources, at least 6 total, than my opponent. I get to claim the foe defeated and so forth. There are all types of cards, much like there are lots of river cards, river tiles. These cards are beautiful. They're fun. You can start to find the kind of synergy, the way they work together, and really building up your engine as you go, because players don't start with anything but a couple cards. They don't even start with resources. I remember when I taught this to my husband at the beginning, he went, well, what do you mean I don't have any resources? I don't get any berries. I don't get any twigs. And I'm like, you got to go get them. You got to send your workers out. You got to go get them here, and you got to play cards, and you got to, get things. So he kind of was like, okay, cool. And after that very first round of winter, going into spring, he was absolutely crushing it with those production buildings. So he had a lot of these guys like the barge toad, where he was gaining those resources yet again here and yet again here. Just fantastic stuff. And what you do when you have these little occupied tokens is essentially you say, I've got this building built that is a particular type. Let's say I've got the courthouse, and then I want to build a little critter that's blue. It has to match. And so I look at this, here's a stargazer that's blue. I can play them down, and what I do is I put this little token on top of my courthouse, and I don't have to pay the 3 berries to build the stargazer, and I get the stargazer because I essentially house the critter in the matching particular type of building. This is cool. I think the coolest feature is the way that the sun and the moon move and how that affects the choices of your play cards from the meadow, but also is kind of telling you like how fast the rounds are going and what you essentially need to do on your turn as your one action. Are you going to place out one of your figures and come here to get 2 resin? Okay, that's it, but you have to move the sun for that. And then the next player is going to go and they move the moon and so forth. So there's this really fascinating, push and pull with those choices that you're making and moving the moon and the sun. You alternate turn order, which is fair. And then you also are really keeping track of those big events because 6 points, 5 points, that's a lot. I mean, that's really a lot. I mean, this pirate ship is -1. The resin refinery is 1, twig, barge, ferry. There's some really good production cards out here. But this has so much replayability, and it's just lovely and light and fast. And once you figure out what everything is, you know what the iconography is on the cards. There's so many that you can't play them all in one game, so you're definitely going back through. And you, of course, are not playing through all of the combinations and all the different scorings for the A, B, C, D, and E events. There's just too much. So simply competitive play here. If you want an Everdell that is perfectly scaled for 2 players, this is it. Like, this is it. And for me, I'm going to play with my husband more often than I'm going to play with more players. And because we know this, it's going to be so easy to pull it out. And it comes in a nice slim box. Now, this is just the competitive play. The cooperative play has essentially the same feel, but there are ways that these skunk figures are going to block particular locations. So these are going to be the skunks, and the skunk is like this skunk reporter that's like getting into our business. And we are trying to accomplish our goals by, I'm going to flip this board over. You ready for this? This is the competitive play. Here's our cooperative play. We flip this guy over, and we're going to have similar goals, but we are both trying to achieve them. We flip these tiles over to the skunk side, and they're going to essentially tell us what we are going to do, who's going to start, what kind of benefits we get with the skunk side. And then we roll this die to essentially place out where the skunks are going to go, up here, in the middle, and down on the bottom. And they essentially block for that particular round that location or that space. And it does get in the way, and it does shorten the amount of turns, because if you're working together trying to accomplish one big goal, you don't actually have as many individual turns as you do in the competitive play. And that little bit of friction, that little bit of like combining your forces is the key, is the trick. And I think one of the coolest features too about this is that there's this little crossroads. And the crossroads allows you at the end of your turn to put either a resource or a card out here, and you are essentially giving it to your opponent at the start of their turn. And your opponent, your team member, right? Because in this game you're playing together. So the crossroads gives you a chance to share what you have, because when you play a card down into your player area, you gain it. It's not collective. You are still playing as 2 players, but you are again working together to accomplish the overall campaign goal. So it has some different play it feels a little bit different. It feels like really good because when some player gets a really cool opportunity, you're not jealous of them because you know how well that's going to help them in their play in a competitive game. You're actually really excited for them because you know it's going to help you as a team. So to make this game cooperative, I think is really, really smart. Using the same cards, the same rivers, the same events, flipping these tiles over and adjusting them slightly, offering us the crossroads right here is, again, really, really smart. And there's also these cards where you can essentially move back time. If you have a time token and you spend it, it allows you to move back the sun or the moon by one space, giving a player, just one player, that one specific action that they need to do something really, really great. And then you also are going to receive these good news. You might have a good news card that's dealt to you. And the good news card is going to just give you a chance. You have it in front of you and you're like, okay, so we have this card and we can play it at any time during the game. And if you don't, you get to keep it for the next game in the campaign. So this says, what's old is new. The history fair hosted by our mayors has sparked renewed interest in the ways of the past. Search the discard pile and each player may draw one card from it. That could, again, really get players out of a pickle. How about this bumper bounty? Activate a production card in your city or in the meadow. I can look out in the meadow, all those cards I had out there, right, that I cleared. All these cards are going to go out here and we're going to have a big old meadow and I can just say, I got to grab me them 2 twigs, right? I really need that. Just so cool. So again, you're going to keep track of your games, whether you played on normal or hard, and just campaign all the way through. There is a lovely campaign book that will tell you exactly how to set up for each game and then how you're progressing through the campaign. Can't say enough good things about this. This has so much gameplay packed into it. So Everdell Duo, again, they just keep getting better and better with the Everdell games, and this is going to tide me over until later this year. I get my Everdell Silverfrost, which, again, really excited about. But I have just been wholly charmed by this, and it is so perfectly balanced for 2 players, and you can play under an hour after you've learned the game the first time in no time. So enjoy this duo, and if you are a 2-player gamer, much like I am, I highly recommend this. Okay? I will see you later, folks. Bye.